everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English, and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMB Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamzalike.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 7th episode of season 21, a master life and weight coach, Dr. Deborah Butler. And just like every of my past episodes, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Doc, the floor is yours.
Hello, Dr. Dan, and it's so good to be here. And what a wonderful opportunity to be on your podcast. So I think what the most important thing that I would like to be able to impart to people who are listening today is that I'm going to say midlife, but also the idea of menopause. Menopause is actually getting a lot of attention these days, more so than when I started this 15 years ago. And I think a lot of women feel kind of hopeless if they've been struggling with weight their whole life, and now they're in menopause, and now they think it's harder than ever, and they think at least they want to give up, or that they don't think that there's any hope. And since that was me 15 years ago, and the process and the journey that I went through, because I used to be a chiropractor for many, many, many years and have my own practice. And as I started getting a little bit just not as happy in my job, I wanted to be doing something else. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but I was really held down by a lot of the thoughts in my own head is that I'm too old and I can't do it. And I'm just going to have to stick with this. How am I going to make money? And as I started going through this process and started meeting life coaches, I never knew what a life coach was 15 years ago. It wasn't that big of a thing. Almost like when I was a chiropractor, when I became a chiropractor like 40 years ago, nobody knew what a chiropractor was either. So it's like, I don't know, I end up walking into these professions that I kind of like I feel like it's new and there's a lot to be had. So for me, I found out how to help my own self get out of my own management of my own mind of thinking I was too old, to this or to that. And also at the same time, I found out that one weight loss coach asked this one question in this life coaching process that I was doing is, do you eat when you're not hungry? And do you know when you're hungry? And do you know when you're full? And I was a nutrition expert. I'm a chiropractor. I know all this stuff, but I went up and down in weight my whole life up until my mid 50s, 20 to 30 pounds, 250 pounds in my lifetime. And that question that she asked me, I think I'm pretty smart. And it was like, I don't know. I don't even know really when I'm hungry or when I'm full, because I never paid attention to that. My concern was how much could I eat without gaining weight? And if I wasn't having to lose weight, then I didn't have to pay attention to anything. I believed that food was like a party.
Yes.
That was meant to be had as long as you didn't have to lose weight. So if I was losing weight, I was restricting and depriving. And if I didn't have to lose weight, I was busy having a party with no connection to my body, on top of being unhappy in my own profession and at my age. So it's like the whole thing started turning around at that time, because if you stop eating when you're not hungry, you start finding out a few things about what's going on in your head and your emotions and what you're feeling. And a lot of those feelings I didn't want to feel. I would rather have a party and eat food.
Yes,
so how's that for a start?
That's a very good start. Very, very detailed start. And that's
okay.
For being here today. And I know how difficult it is after a certain age for people to lose weight. But if we go back to basic, Deb, and I all know 3,500 calories is equal to a pound. Okay. The
Mhm.
body burns calorie at rest and it burns more calorie during activity. So
Mhm.
say we deduct a certain amount, because the tricky part is to know what is the sustainable amount of calorie for someone to eat daily to not gain or not to lose weight. And from that point, you could go backward and see exactly how many calories you need to take out of your daily intake to be able to start losing the weight or gaining the
Mhm.
weight. Because everyone, like for example, a bodybuilder will need 4 to 5,000 calories to be able to function. But someone
Mhm.
who doesn't have too much activity or doesn't work out as much may
Yeah.
need 1,500 or 2,200. So if you
Mhm.
know what is your the rate of intake of calories for your own body, and you know what will not make you gain or lose weight, and this is where from this point you know how much you need to deduct to be able to get to lose the 1 pound that you want to lose on a weekly basis.
Mhm. Well, that's not quite the way it's true what you're saying, but that's kind of the way I functioned for my first 30 years,
Okay.
is I understood that the truth of that, but I think that there's a lot to be said about your own appetite and what happens to your appetite over time, which is your hunger.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of people, as we get older and our metabolism slows down, I don't know if you'd agree with this or not, our appetite decreases too, and our caloric intake should be decreasing. Now, we can pay really, really close attention to it, which is what I did for a long time and what I taught, but it really didn't help people connect inside their own body when it was time to eat and when it was time to stop. So what you're saying is makes the most amount of sense, but I wanted to go beyond that because it was like, well, what would happen if I just monitored my own hunger and decided on what that hunger was and decided on what that fullness was and came up with some kind of a graph. Instead of a caloric graph, it was like a hunger scale. I started with that and was amazed at how little food I needed to eat and to stop. And that the reason I wanted to keep eating wasn't because I was hungry.
Because
For
you're
the same reason, somebody can know how many calories they need, but that doesn't mean they're going to stop eating because there's no more calories to eat or there's no more points to have.
yeah.
There's something else going on. And that's what interested me. And that's what I love to try to help women grow with is the emotion. Because if we can feel all of our emotions better, they will lead us to where we need to go, which is what I think happened to me in my 50s is I ended up out of chiropractic and ended up into something that was much more exciting to me. And how did I feel all those feelings? Well, I stopped eating them to start out with and started feeling more of what was going on and let those feelings lead me to meet life coaches or to understand what even a weight loss coach was. I had never even heard, I don't even know if there was a term like that
Well,
15 years
like fitness
ago.
trainers. That's
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Really, I mean,
Exactly.
in our certification, because I'm also from certified NASM,
Yeah.
National Academy of Sports Medicine, they do give you a lot of courses in nutrition because you have to be
Yes.
holding a lot of hats. You have to be a nutritionist. You have to be an expert in fitness training. You have to be a kinesiologist. You have to be a psychologist. You have to be everything as a trainer. So
Yes.
what I've seen when I used to train my client is
Yeah.
that at a certain age, people, as you mentioned, they're so desperate in wanting to lose weight and they can't. So they usually go with those fad diets that we see
Yes.
out. And because they want the instant gratification or the magic pill that they will lose the weight. But this is not sustainable long term. I mean,
I
you
agree.
like Atkins, you see the paleo, you see the
Hmm.
keto. How
Hmm.
many years can you really last on that without really feeling deficient in nutrition and not having enough protein or not enough carbs or vitamins, whatever it is that you need to be able to
Yeah.
sustain life?
Hmm.
So the clients that come to you and they say, "Oh, I've seen this new diet. It gives you this and this and this, and you could lose 15 pounds in a month."
Hmm.
Would you tell them, you know what, try it for a month and see how it works? Or would you stay away from it because you're going to endanger yourself?
Well, actually, most of the people that seek me out already don't want that anymore. That's what they've been doing, and they know it doesn't work. So they're already at the point where it's like, I think what I have to say is refreshing because it's like, I think most people know what to eat. and know what not to eat for their own bodies. If they've been in their bodies for a while, a lot of people know. Now, if you've been on these fad diets your whole life, which I do deal with a lot of that, and I was one of those, then we don't have a good connection with our body to begin with. We have a connection to external things, somebody else telling us what to do and how to do it and when we should stop and when we should start. And my whole premise is let's start connecting into you, because I deal with pretty smart women who know, they're educated, they know. I knew I had all the certifications to tell me what to do. That didn't stop me from binge eating at night or going grocery shopping and buying the foods that I told people not to eat. I mean, and so it's like those are the people that I'm dealing with, and they're struggling with weight because they've been struggling with weight. It's not a new thing because they're in menopause. They've been struggling. And my goal is to get rid of the struggle once and for all, because it's been going on for a long time. And if you've been eating emotionally your whole life, well, when menopause comes along, you are going to want to eat more, no doubt about it, because your emotions are going to be stronger. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Is it the same as, I'm sure that you know the show from TLC with Dr. Now, My 600-Pound Life, where you see a lot of people before he does the bariatric surgery, he tells them first lose 80 to 100 pounds on your own because he wants them
Okay.
to break that relationship with food. Because if
Yeah.
it's emotional eating, then even if you do the surgery or you do a lap band around the stomach and eliminate the intake of food, if you have not broken that relationship with that food, you're going to go back and eat the same way as you did before, despite the surgery. So is it the same thing here where they have to first break that bond that they have with food to be able to successfully lose weight after menopause?
I think that's a good way to look at it. And I've created a couple processes called the physical hunger scale and the emotional hunger scale, and how to deal with urges, because I think most of this is either a mind problem or a body problem or a mind-body disconnection problem. And everything that we talk about when we talk about the right foods or the right caloric content, at some level, our bodies kind of inform us. And our bodies get a little confused when we stop paying attention to them over the years. Like if we have been eating when we're not hungry for a long time, then our bodies kind of almost say, well, maybe I shouldn't even send you a signal because you don't even listen anyway. And I'm kind of talking for our bodies, but we have a mind and a body connection. So the body says to the mind, stop, I'm full. Now, what the mind does with that in a normal body, and we can look at 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds who you try to make a 2-year-old eat more food than they want, they're going to throw it in your face.
That's true too.
You try to get somebody my age and give them something and they're not hungry and it looks good, they're going to, something in their head's probably going to go, well, it's okay. You can start again on Monday and it looks good and you've been really good. And all the things that the mind conjures up that breaks that connection with the body is the work that I do when I'm working with people, is to reconnect that by seeing what is going on up there. Because I think we lose connection with our body and we pay way too much attention to our mind and our emotions, because our mind, I think, creates a lot of our emotions.
That's so true. But at the same time, if someone deals with a physical problem such as the ghrelin is the hormone that determines
Yeah,
or not. If they have a disconnect with that, I mean,
yeah,
despite the fact that in their mind or they send a message, hey, you're full, but they do not process that message, can that
yes.
impact as well the long-term effect?
Yes, yes. And it's almost like we're training our brains, because our brains are pretty malleable.
Mhm.
And so I think our hunger scales can change over time. And I think that if we disconnect enough, the body kind of goes quiet, or our mind is so good at overriding it that we don't even realize. Like I'll have people say, well, I was still hungry. And I'm going, but were you? So, I have them look at physical hunger scale and emotional hunger scale to really get connected to, do you know when you're hungry and do you know when you're full? Hunger meaning if we have a scale from a -10 to a +10, -10 is starving, +10 is full. I don't think this is anything rocket science, but to eat at a -2 and stop at a +2, eat when you're getting ready, when you're just starting to be hungry, and stop when you're just starting to feel full. But my gosh, the range
Mhm.
of, if you say you're full, what do you really mean? Do you mean you're a +8 or do you mean you're a +2? So training people to really pay attention to when they say I'm full, what do you really mean?
So, okay, so let's talk about the fullness aspect.
Okay.
If someone just kind of eat, but knows, I mean, stops, I mean, it's hard to really determine the scale because each person is different. But if, let's say, someone can eat still the same amount of food that they just ate and double it before they get to being full, is that where you determine that you are at 5 or at 0 between the -10 and the +10? I mean, because, like, for example, if I eat rice and vegetable and salmon, okay,
Yeah.
finish
Mhm.
my plate, but I could eat a second plate of that. Is this where I decide to stop?
Well, if you're at a +2
Okay.
and you like, if you never talked to me before, you may go, well, I don't even know what a +2 is. I don't even know what that means. So the beginning of the work is getting those numbers down for you. What do those numbers mean to you, and do you even know? And that is a process that takes a little bit of time just to connect into that so that at least you know I have what I need in my body and something inside of me is telling me to eat more, but it's not because I'm hungry. I think it's really powerful when you can say, but I'm not hungry, as opposed to fooling yourself and going, but I'm still hungry, because emotional hunger can feel physiologically in your body too, because our emotions live there.
Sure.
So it's very easy for somebody to say, yeah, but I'm still hungry, but it's not physical hunger. It's emotional hunger. And what does emotional hunger feel like in somebody's body is different for everybody.
Yes.
But being able to identify it is powerful.
But up to a certain age, when women hit menopause, I mean, the
Yeah.
hormones goes up and down. I mean, they completely in every single direction. So do you feel that at this point, they need to amplify the effect or the strategies to be able to avoid falling the same trap of eating emotionally based versus the physical need, if you know what I
Uh,
mean?
No, I don't. Ask me again.
So after a certain age, when they
Yeah.
hit, the certain level where they could not really control their love for food, or if they, let's say, they love a certain food and it's hard after many years of eating the same one, it's hard to
Yeah.
be kind of not stop, but kind of reduce the quantity. And you're right. I mean, after a certain age, your caloric needs are reduced considerably. But this emotional connection that you have with food, how hard is it to be able to break?
It's hard. I think it's really hard, but I also think it's really worth the work, because that's what makes you feel powerful is when like, I have so many people that come to me that say they feel that food is controlling them. And really, their mind is controlling them about the food. The food's not controlling them.
Okay.
And to give back the power to realize that a cookie is just a cookie. Now, how you think about a cookie is very, very important, because if you talk about cookies like, I love cookies and I can't stay away from them, I can't keep them in my house, I can't, all of that, that will add drama and emotions to the food. So it's like, first of all, can we calm down about what we want to think about these foods? Can we save the love that we have for people and put the feelings that we have for food in perspective, so that it's not up there with, I love my spouse and I love cookies.
Mhm.
Like, for some people, they're like at the same place because they talk about it with no mindfulness, like they don't even realize what they're saying. They don't realize it. They think that they're just telling you the facts about their lives. And
Yeah.
really what they're telling you is thoughts that they've been thinking for so long, they think it's a fact about them.
So when someone comes to you and you have a group of women
Yeah.
and they all need to have their their mind and their thought processes changed, um, how, if it's a customized approach to each and every woman because they have different bodies, they have different needs, etc. Do you have to customize each of your plan for each and every lady?
Um, so I work individually and I work in groups. So when I work individually, it can be much more customized, but I have come up with a process that's pretty step by step for anybody that wants to look at this. You have a physical hunger scale, you need to learn how to do it. And you need to understand or be able, I can help you understand emotional hunger scale. And all of these things are different for each person. And at the same time, they're common.
I see. And when it comes to making, for, okay, so let's say a woman comes to you, how long do you feel that it will take for them to be able to see considerable amount of changes in her body after menopause?
In the mind-body connection.
If they follow your plan, yes.
Yeah. I have a 12-week process. So I would say, so I'm going to say 12 weeks is a good start. Now, I don't think that you can just end up 12 weeks and you're there and nothing's ever going to happen again. But I think I give you tools in a toolbox of what to do that you've never had before. And I just don't think that you will ever see anything the way you see it after you've done this work. I think once you're aware, you can't be unaware.
Correct.
Once you know, you can't not know.
Mhm.
But I do think that you can lose it and come back. And part of what I teach a lot of is how to come back and not to make it mean that it's over because you did something that you wish you didn't do. I think getting strong and becoming compassionate with yourself when you make mistakes, this diet thing and this food thing and our body thing has become so out of proportion
So true.
that to try to bring it in and calm down about your own worthiness, your self-worth almost is not the same as what you weigh on the scale.
So if someone have tried for many years those fat diets and
Yeah.
seen some progress, they have seen weight loss, they have experienced all that, and they stopped, obviously, and then they go back to gaining weight again, and then they
Yeah.
try another fat diet, and
Yeah.
another, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So obviously, some will work for some people, and others will not work. So some of them, did they come to you and tell you, "Hey, doc, I've tried the keto diet, and
Mhm.
I've lost 30 pounds. So is that something that I should continue on, or should I be something that I'm going to be concerned about dealing with too much ketosis in the body?"
I think that I guess part of the process that I do is try to help them figure out what would be best for them. And since everybody I work with has been on many, many diets, the most common thing I have is how many times somebody has lost weight on so many diets. It's just very, very common. So it's what I see all the time. And I think most people, when they come to me, what they want is they want to stop that and get a little bit more in touch with what they believe could be right for themselves, to be able to trust themselves. I don't know that it's a ketogenic diet or if it's a paleo diet, but I think it's like most people know what a healthy diet is. Most people for themselves know. And then we've been bombarded with so much education that instead of it helping us, it's confusing us.
Mhm.
And I think, at least with the women, thousands of women that I've worked with over 15 years, they find out what works for them because they almost know to begin with,
Mhm.
but they think somebody out there must know better. And they think there's something wrong with them because they have a weight problem. But really, it's almost like we have a cultural problem
Mhm.
about our bodies and what we should eat. And it's like, I've been around so many women who are so smart and will be out eating. And these smart, brilliant women take a breadbasket and keep passing it because they don't want to keep it next to them because they don't want to eat it. I
Yeah.
mean, smart, brilliant women. I mean, who have very successful careers don't want the bread next to them. I want to stop that business. I want people to believe that they can keep the bread next to them. They can eat it or not, but it is not so dramatic and you don't have to pass it to somebody else. Or if you have food in your house, and let's just say that you like cookies, a special cookie, keep it in your house. You don't have to clean everything out. This is my own opinion. I know everybody doesn't agree with that. But there's so much power when you can feel an urge to want to eat something and then deal with the urge. It doesn't feel good. But I mean, we have urges to do a lot of things that we don't do in this world.
I agree.
Right. And when we put food, like it's just another one of those things we don't do because what's it going to do for us? It's almost like we get our brains back.
That's true. Yes.
That's the only way I can see it.
For our listeners, I would love them to be able to have the opportunity to be able to reach out to you, Doc, about your services. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of service you offer, so at least our listeners can be able to know where to reach out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have a podcast and it's called Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond.